I would like to welcome everyone to the June 4th Charter Review Committee meeting. Be Tuesday evening, 6 o'clock, we'll get the meeting going. Per the agenda, we'll start with a pledge of allegiance. Everyone will join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, if I could get a motion to accept or at least the minutes of May 21st. So moved. Second. So any omissions, corrections, anything to anyone's? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Mr. Bolton? Yes. Okay, Ms. Cavaco, she's on the air? No. Mr. Costello, yes. Mr. Hutchinson? Yes. Mr. Hutchinson, and then I think it went down, Mr. Pizer, is that right?
I'll say yes.
Okay. Mr. Levin?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hanlon and both Mr. Lawler are not here. Miss Boltrain, is she?
I just got a call.
So, Mr. Hanlon is here.
Okay,
He'll abstain.
they'll abstain at this time, but you'll be a
Minutes. You weren't here.
appear to be a voting member. Ms. Cavaco at this time is not here, so if you'd like.
He's a voting member permanently. We've had.
Oh, we lost 2 places. I'm sorry. You're a voting member. My mistake.
Oh, I'm
sir.
sorry, as a voting number too. We'll give you an award.
You can sit anywhere you want now that you're a full-fledged member. Back in there. Ms. Boltrain stepped out, but I'm assuming, seemed like we had,
Color extension. Color extension.
one abstention.
Oh,
Ms.
there's.
Boltrain, your thoughts on the vote for the minutes of May 21st? Did you have an opportunity to review them?
I did, but no, I think I will, Pat? Abstain.
So I didn't
Sorry.
abstain? Okay, very
Abstain.
good. All right. So it appears to be 4, 5 in favor and 2 abstentions. And 2 people voting and Mr. Lawler not voting, okay? All right, very good. Any public comment at this time? We have a public in the room, Mr. Donato, go right ahead, sir.
If I could just take a minute or two on Al Donato, town meeting member, precinct 17.
We might ask you, I think, due to technology, we might have to come to,
Take a chair.
join us at the main chair, at the main table, and I think these speakers will pick you up on this button.
Yeah, I'll be very quick, right here.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'll work.
Yeah. Again, my name is Al Donato, precinct 17, town meeting member. I'm gonna leave and go to the select board in a little while, but I just want to thank the support for the portion of the school committee deliberation you had on the chargebacks that the town picks up on behalf of the schools, that'll be part of the charter. I know that situation well. I think as we look at the true cost of education, from what I understand, it's anywhere from 64 to 68% of the budget. And I think going forward, if there's a talk of potential override, as we've used $7 million of our levy, that we're gonna have that battle. And I think it's important for us to know what that true number is and to have that assessed under the school department. I'm not suggesting there be cuts in the schools, and I think going forward, if we have to go to Beacon Hill in the future, like other towns, and deal with the fact that our local aid has been level funded for 20 years. We got more local aid 20 years ago than we do now. So I think that's important in the charter. It's something I'm going to support at town meeting, and not to be hostile towards the schools, but just to get the true number of what it costs. And I've said many times, in closing, I want to say many times, I've talked about these unfunded mandates, and all communities are going through that. And I think unless we find a pot of gold under town hall or up at Beacon Hill, at some point, we're gonna have to deal with these unfunded mandates to keep our commitments with the unions, with the school departments and others. You know, I've always said, I don't think it's a problem here at town hall. It's more of a state issue. I think we all agree with that. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for all you've done. I appreciate this is arduous work, been a long process, and I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, and, thank you for your time,
Thank you.
appreciate it, and everything you do for the town, thank you.
Yes.
All right, getting in, no further public comment, there's no one online.
Mr. Abbott is online, he's going to ask him a few issues.
Okay, Mr. Abbott, do you have any, desire to join a public comment? Not seeing your hand up, if for some reason you'd like to at a later time in the meeting, just, raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you, sir. Moving on to discussion items at this time. The first one is, an update on the renumbering / format of the charter. And, as most of you were here, last meeting, we put together a informal, work group. Mr. Pizer, Mr. Bolton, Mr. Levin and myself. And we, met virtually last Friday, I believe 1 o'clock. And, due to the, great preliminary, work by Mr. Bolton and Mr. Levin, we had a document to work with right away, and between the four of us, we hashed out the renumbering in just a couple of hours. There are some things that we need full support of, the committee to look at and vote on, but, I think, everyone has been, Len, has everybody been sent out a copy of
Yeah,
that?
I sent this out the other day.
So everyone has a copy. If you do not have a copy, I have one here to just go through this evening, but at this time, I'll let the other members of the work, group, speak and let you know where we, Ms. Littlefinger, right there, I'm sorry.
So this is not it, right?
This is what it
Otherwise-
looks like.
What we got online,
That's right, it was a
Yesterday.
PDF yesterday, so basically. What it
which I
is,
have looked at, all right,
Right,
so I
so-
don't need this,
as I explained in my.
but I don't have any way to look at what we're.
Okay.
Is it like 26 pages? Is that what plus or minus?
It's actually.
Yes, 26.
Is it 26? Yes.
Table of contents, is this what you have?
Yeah,
on the
I
side?
saw that online, but I don't have. it
So
with
what
me.
this is simply the charter as changed. But its focus was on a reorganization and renumbering. It doesn't contain all the deletions. It doesn't contain some of the additions. It does contain some of the changes, I'll use it that way. But they're not noted because we didn't work focusing on that. We were just focusing on getting the thing reorganized and then trying to come up with a new numbering scheme for it. With that said, I don't know if we want to go to the next item because we talked about, well, I should say, we talked about a strategy of how to identify what was changed, and I have proposed that there would be a document. If we accept the renumbering reorganization, a document that connected this reorganized charter to the old charter. Section by section saying, okay, this section in the old charter was 2-2-1, and in the new charter, it's 3-4-6, whatever. And if there were some changes in that section, they would be noted.
Let's take a second and let the others speak that in the.
Okay, I'm
workshop.
sorry.
Before we muddy the waters too, it's because what he's referring to is we had a meeting this afternoon with town council to try to develop how we're gonna present these as articles at town meeting. And she had some suggestions, and we'll bring that up at the next, as the next item, but let's all feel comfortable with this document as far as we got today. And then unless you could join in, give your opinion, before we.
Sorry.
No, you're not wrong.
No, I
It's gonna
understand.
come to, we have to discuss it tonight. As we discussed today, and as anyone who's been through this before, it's imperative that we explain this as best we can, so there's no confusion with town meeting members. And there's a host of confusion, as anyone can imagine, you're deleting things, changing the numbers, adding a couple words, subtracting some words. It's not an apples and apples transition, so it's gonna take a little bit. We wanna make sure that we put together the easiest document for others to look at. As everyone at this table remembers, 2017, the paperwork we got. With that charter, with all those charter changes and the pages you had to flip back and forth, it was a good result, but because the committee did some good things, but it was tough to try to juggle all of that paperwork. So I hope here, and I'd like others to address it, is to have the cleanest, neatest document we can put together. So, Mr. Pike, do you have anything to say about the workshop or your thoughts on the results?
Yeah, I do.
right, good.
First of all, this was one of the best meetings I've had. It was 2 hours long. And it deserved to be 2 hours and it didn't deserve to be 4. It was quite impressive, I think. If I do say so myself, it was quite impressive that, that everyone had something to say and that we ended up doing the work. That having been said, I'm very pleased with the result. And yet, it seems to me that when we're dealing with this, one of the most successful things we can do as far as not the wording, but the numbering, is to present to the town meeting our suggestion and to invest in the town clerk the opportunity to come up with the finished product. And the town clerk is very likely to come, to use what we've done, but we'll end up getting it when we start discussing how we're going to make the presentation to town meeting. It could get a little bit complicated when town meeting gets their hands on it and might want to make some changes to the work that we've done.
Steve, Mr. Bolton,
Sure, so as a subcommittee, when we got together, we really focused on trying to put things in a logical progression so that somebody picking this up for the first time and looking at that table of contents could find what they were looking for. And when they got there, the subsections followed a logical progression as well, so they could reach where they were going and get the information that they wanted. One of the things that I think we've discovered as we've gone through this charter is we have various things in various sections. And I think from our meeting today, and we'll discuss it later, we understand why that happened. Just because of the challenges of how to amend a charter under this format. So the focus here was to put things together that just made sense so that it was a much more user-friendly document. That's the real priority here.
Hard copies.
Oh. Thank you so much, Michelle.
thank you,
Oh, my
thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys didn't even have copies? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
well, we got, Michelle and I got confused. with that. How about the press? You need to get it.
I have one, if you have an extra, keep one for yourself, or.
Next one.
Martha did.
I've got one.
Here, you, Joe, you can take it.
Oh, Joe, yeah.
I have.
Get one extra,
I'll-
handy
I'll
when
hand it.
Mr. Lawler comes
Yeah, I'll
in,
hand
if you don't mind.
So,
Oh, here, I got 2. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, it's good,
leave it for.
Yeah.
for-
Tim will read
Oh, right
it.
here.
So, so that was the thought process, and I think as we went through it, we were very comfortable that the average person who's looking through our charter to find things could find them, because they were in a place that made sense. So we tried to make both the sequence and the headings rational for someone who's trying to go through. That was the goal of our reordering. So,
All right, so to everyone's credit, it was a very productive meeting, and I think that we have a really good document to start, but we want to make sure that the others in the committee review it, have input in it. If there's any questions, if there's any changes that jump out at you, let us know. It's certainly may in certain areas need to be tweaked, but I think we're starting off with a very good product. And I guess what would you think would be the best way? Do you wanna go through this and recognize some of the changes? Oh, Martha, go right ahead.
So I did have a chance to read some of it this
Okay.
afternoon, and I agree with what you've been saying. That the organization is better. And for the person who's town meeting member, and a lot of town meeting members will be able to read it a lot better than I do. I've never been a town meeting member. But I want to finish it and, you know, make my comments.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
At the next meeting, I think, because
Okay.
I can't like look at it and say, oh, that's right, I thought
No,
of
no,
that.
no, no, take your
This
time.
morning
Like
when I was reading.
around.
Um,
If I could, I think. As the historian in the group, I think this has never been done before with the possible exception of the initial charter. I believe that every time the charter was amended, the commissions, whichever they were, chose the starting point and then just added pieces.
Right.
And therefore, the imperfect.
Imperfections were introduced.
Yeah, I think that the reason that it became imperfect is that no one said, let's take this as a whole. They took it as pieces to be amended. So when we're presenting this to town meeting, I think that that would be a worthy explanation of, yeah, maybe it started well, but that was 50 or 75 years ago. And that it got unwieldy in the process.
I wanna make a comment about it also that we didn't do. I'll make be the keeper of the didn't do list. So there's references to sections in the charter, in some of the verbiage, and those were not changed. We didn't go through and try to change those. Cause that, we wanted to not do that and then have to redo it and then redo it. So you'll see a place that says it refers to section 5-7-2. That's wrong, and we will fix that as part of, once we accept the renumbering is to be something we do. So when you're looking through it and you see those things, I just want to let you know that those are things that need to be dealt with, but they haven't been dealt with yet.
I guess what Melinda's saying is, don't worry about necessarily
Right.
the numbering, because some of the numbering will need to be adjusted a little bit.
Right, but that's a relatively easy thing to do.
Correct.
I understand, but
We'll
I-
get to the whole rationale following what Mr. Pfizer just said in a moment.
that's right.
Yeah, what
We-
Mr. Pfizer just said is what we ran into this afternoon, because you can't put two documents side by side any longer. Which.
Oh, I
once we
thought
figure out
Glenn
the
was
way to
just
do it,
talking
it's a
about
good
the
thing.
numbering.
No, I'm talking about here.
Yeah,
If you
your
just-
section references or
Yeah,
whatever.
right, if you look in some.
Yeah, so
thing,
you
there's
just
some
create a
reference to
variable
Section,
and
we
point
didn't
to the
go and
variable.
update
Guys,
those.
let's not talk over one each other,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah,
We didn't go and update those. I know it might be an easy thing to do, but the timeline was pretty tight, so I just.
Okay.
But a couple of things I remember from Friday is we had a couple of things hanging, before you get too invested in reading this 100%. There's a couple of things that have to be changed, but they have to be changed as a committee. So, do you have the notes?
Yeah, I know exactly.
So
what
we
they
can
are.
bring it to the certain pages, the certain paragraphs, and
Yes,
as
sir.
a committee, we'll clean those 2 or 3 areas up. There's very few, there's only 2 or 3, I think, quick votes that have to be made, or language changes, or however works best for the committee. And then I think you can go back, Martha, or Joe, whoever has, Mike, look at it, review it, and I think you'll see what everyone's explaining, that it's gonna be a much easier document to read.
So if you go to the heading of chapter 2, which is on page 5. You will see that we added. The term town-wide to the title of that chapter. To delineate the differences of people that are being elected, that these are town-wide. So it will say town-wide elected town boards and officers. Okay? Let me just keep going through them.
Yeah, the other thing,
The
no,
next thing we did is to be consistent with the way the order of the different elected boards showed up in chapter 2. The order of the different boards and people, the town moderator was made section 5. So therefore, and of course, I didn't do that. It should be section 5, so I believe, no, that's right, so the town moderator and the school committee, I did do it, town
They got
moderator and school committee got flipped.
yeah,
Sorry, I got.
no problem. I think Steve can speak to the whole moderator issue.
Well, just,
Yeah.
so
It's
what is
interesting.
what is currently chapter 2 was chapter 4. We really, other than changing townwide, we really left it the same. But what we noticed was town moderator was not listed as an elected official in town. We didn't have the moderator in the list. It was just missing. It was something that none of us caught when we were going through the charter the whole time. So obviously, the town moderator is a townwide elected official and should be included. So I just wanted to make sure that the moderator got added. And then we'll put the moderator in
The correct
the
order.
correct sequence with everything else.
Can I interject? It's
Go
a
ahead,
little
Martha.
confusing to me because I hear people using terms to describe what I think is this document and this document.
Yeah.
So, could we decide what we're gonna call these documents when we're talking? So would we call this one our current charter?
Correct, that's
And
good.
would we call this one
The proposed.
the
proposed charter.
review committee's proposed charter?
It's
Or what would we say?
Proposed charter.
Yeah,
Okay.
Proposed and current, I think is, if that's comfortable, if you're
All right.
comfortable with that, those words will work.
Thanks.
We're not here to propose a charter, we're,
Proposed changes.
Changes.
yeah.
Proposed, okay, very good, yeah.
Okay, this is good.
And another thing, and I'll,
Our
I'm gonna
proposal.
ask Steve to do it, because he did this for me and they were very helpful. Can you explain your rationale as to how you, 'cause I think this will bring a lot of it into focus for you, or it did for me anyway.
So in terms of choosing what order things went in. I followed a legalistic format, which then Len said also follows an engineering format, which is essentially, we just went from overriding down to now. Actually, Joe, you were the one who said it to me, that it followed the engineering format.
That's,
We went from overriding to the more narrow. So we started with choosing townwide elected. And then we went to local elected, which would be town meeting. And then we went to essentially administrative, and which supports those. And then we went to appointed, and we started with mandatory appointed, as in state requires us to have it. Then down to non-mandatory, but our charter is now creating appointed bodies. And then we finished with the administrative stuff, how all of the above gets done. So that was the sequence that we chose going through all of this. In order to, I don't know if that's there.
Okay.
So that was the sequence that we went in, because we also thought that that would be the sequence that people logically would look for things. They would look for big picture first and then narrow down to the details. Does that cover it all?
Yes, that was very beneficial to me, and hopefully that was some help to you, because it helps now following, how we put this document together, Steve, and put this document together, and Len, and then how we, numbered it.
If I could,
Go right ahead, Mr. Pyron.
one of the things that we did, was not to eliminate subheadings, but not necessarily to make them sections. In other words, if you were to look, God, let's find,
What chapter 3 is
Chapter 3 is the real
one.
yeah,
Did all that.
okay, chapter.
Well, actually, it's not chapter two.
More? Thank you.
It's chapter five is a
Five.
good example.
Okay, if you look at. On chapter 5.
Well, how you doing, sir? There's a copy of some work, a proposed charter change, is that the word we just said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna rename the footer.
Yeah, very, very perfect.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna be able to lay my hands on it, but if you
I
look,
thought two was pretty good.
Well-
Where we deleted chapter, and we just kept,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Well, those we need sections and then chapter.
Okay, there we go. If you look at chapter 2, section 1. You have a bunch of stuff, and then we call it terms of office, but it doesn't have a section number. It actually ended up clarifying the numbering system by eliminating some of the section numbers. Because we wanted to make each section equal in importance, as we went through. But, and then if you notice on page,
But
Six.
at the same time, we kept the headings
The headings. should
Right.
stay.
so that you'll be able to find it, but especially because the headings will still appear in the table of contents. And they will be electronically linkable. So when you're looking, so you find, the select board. And then under the select board, instead of, so the select board is section 1.
You applied a logic without having to renumber it,
right,
Correct.
that's fine. You can renumber, I mean, the numbering scheme in general is, I think, flawed. The 2.1 could maybe be, well, I'll leave that,
There was discussion about changing that.
yeah,
And the thought process was, it's something that town meeting at this point is comfortable with. And since we're comparing apples to apples, when they're comparing and others, they will at least have a similar
at least
numbering
that
scheme.
will be there. Okay,
And so, yes, ideally, if I were to use statutory numbering language,
Right.
it would be.
legal numbering.
Legal number,
language.
it would be different, but.
Or engineering
Or
numbering.
engineering
language.
numbering nomenclature would be different as well, but given that that this was going to be a document that needed to be compared with a similar document.
Yep.
We didn't want to go completely afield and say, all right, well, now you're comparing 2.1.1 A to 3-4-2. We assumed that might be seizure inducing enough.
I would just make the comment that the approaching it with a logic will make it different enough that I don't think that would make any difference. You could, I mean, be up to you to decide, but it's, if you're gonna fix it, you should probably fix the whole thing, is sort of. Anyway, it's okay.
All right, do you want to continue with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
changes?
Yeah, so based on what, if you notice on the footer, I'm gonna add in, instead of just saying proposed charter, I'm gonna say proposed changes to charter, just for clarification.
Aren't we kind of splitting hairs when we add changes? It is a proposed charter.
Well,
but
if,
that sounds as though
Commission.
the commission had a product, take it or leave it. And what we're presenting is a bunch of different ideas, and they can accept each idea or not accept any of ideas. And differentiating ourselves from the commission might be politically wise.
it's also just factually accurate.
You're referring to town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, because we're gonna, as a group, we're gonna have to come up with some strategies to do that, so we don't lose the whole product, we get some of it through, some of it gets changed, but.
So moving right
Continue
along.
on with the changes,
So page 9. From what we originally had. section 252 and section 253. If you go look at the original document, we swapped those in their order. Okay. That changed now. Let me find the next one. I'm looking for the D
The
versus.
next one is gonna require a vote, I believe.
Yeah, three A.
So if you go to,
Three, one.
Next page, 10.
Yeah.
Don't we need to vote on all of these
Well, there's,
numbering systems?
there's a couple, oh, we'll have to vote on the whole thing, you're right, but there's a couple things that we put as a work subcommittee. Make these decisions, there's a couple of redundant chapters in here that will take a few minutes of our time to either. Get rid of one of them, consolidate them, or get rid of both of them, but we have to address it, and we couldn't address that as a subcommittee.
so if you look on page 10, thank you.
Hang on a second.
Oh, should you be making the changes off of the current charter rather than this new change charter?
That's to be, we'll do that clerically, because as we talk about the legal thing, it may change the direction we go with this. So then let's just record it, we'll get it off of the other document. So if you look on page 10, we have a section 313A and 313B. And 313B came from, give me a second, came from 252. And I know that's confusing because that's the old number. But basically, it appears that those two sections, if you read them, in my opinion, is that they are redundant.
Mr. Bolton.
Explaining what happened. This was one of the second one on the page you're looking at, B. That was the language that we as a group worked together to create. It then was put into our draft changes. And Mr. Golden had moved it to another section. 3A remained in the charter, so it didn't get deleted, so we now have in our working version that we had prior to the renumbering, in our working version, it has both 3A and 3B in different places. So we need to just simply identify the one that we worked on as a group, which is B, but then as a group vote to delete A. Because that's just, it is a redundancy and it's not, and the B was reflected the changes of the committee. That's all.
So can I be clear that 3A is still in the current charter? We just never took it out back
Right,
whenever that
right.
was.
We amended, we made changes to
I
it
know I had trouble reading it.
and we moved it. So we made changes and we moved it. And just administratively, we forgot to put the strikeout through the original one that was there.
So all we need is a simple motion to delete 3-1-3A.
Yes.
With,
Okay,
with
So moved.
with the proviso that the typo in 3B be corrected from D
We're gonna get to that, hang
to
on.
D.
Well, but wait a minute, I mean, from a legal point of view, you're deleting 2-something, right?
You mean it's in here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, where is it?
We are,
well, that,
we are. This gets to where we get to the next phase, but yes, we are, but we already, as a group. Added the revised version. So as a group, we worked on that section. And then we said, okay, and we voted on it and said, okay, these are the changes.
Right.
It just got moved and the original one didn't get deleted.
That's clear.
2-5-3,
Okay,
So that's the one that we want to
2-5-.
delete.
correct.
right,
what page is that? Well, I didn't have.
but that's what I'm saying,
What is it again, Larry?
2-5-3.
Michael just did it.
2-5-3.
I mean,
All right,
So do you want
I'll
to?
change my motion to delete section 2-5-3 from the existing charter.
Okay,
can we just do a motion for all these changes?
well, it's the chair's decision, but it might be better.
There's several notes. I
I'm
think we
taking
should,
notes of
I
what we.
think you should take them by.
I think we should take it one at a time, so there's no more further confusion, so that we don't wanna lump everything. I think once people, this will start to click. I don't wanna try to do them all at once and then have everyone be confused, so,
Give me a second.
yeah. So essentially, 3-1-3A, in this document, the proposed charter change document will go away. And 3-1-3B will slide up and you'll drop the B. Is that right?
Yes.
And if everyone's, and then, I don't know if this got completed, but in the fourth sentence, about midway through, it says deeded. We feel the word should be deemed, and we changed it. And that's
Just a typo, yeah.
Right, okay, so we just want to make sure everybody's aware of it.
So before we deal, should we go back to the very beginning of this discussion and have a motion and a vote on all the other things that we said we changed?
I think we should.
Okay,
All right, we can certainly do that. You have,
just give me a second.
well, you wanted this, we're here on this one, let's get this one complete.
No, let's do it in order because we have to take minutes.
All right. Sounds good.
This is what happens when we lose track of things. Just give me a second. I'm trying to.
Should I withdraw the motion?
At this time, would you withdraw the motion?
Fine.
That's all right.
I'm just trying to do my.
Motion's withdraw, let's go back, we're gonna go back to the beginning, and, second time through, so we're gonna start, what, at chapter 2, townwide, is that the first
On
thing?
page 5, chapter 2, townwide,
Okay,
give me. Okay, we basically added the word townwide in front of elected town boards and officers.
is there a motion to do? What Mr. Levin suggested, someone. Mr. Bolton, makes the motion, I second it, townwide 2 words.
Is townwide hyphenated?
Townwide may be grammatically correct as either two words or a hyphenated.
But wide, where is it? Well, but townwide so a wide representative is not a correct usage. That's a unit modifier, townwide. I mean,
Would you suggest-
Mr. Zuccaroli's not here, so I can't blame him, but what section are you looking at right now?
Chapter 2 on page 5.
Right, townwide is a unit modifier, townwide elected. So if you just left town alone, it would be wide elected town board unit officers. That's how you scan it. And so townwide in this instance is a unit modifier modifying elected, townwide elected town boards and officers.
So should
Would
it be
you-
one word or two
Are you
words?
asking,
It's a one word, it's 2 words, but they're hyphenated.
so are you asking to just amend with a hyphen in?
Yeah,
How about,
it's really
Well,
not.
I'm telling you, Word didn't care.
Oh, a word always cares.
Well, I'm telling you, I just typed it, Word didn't care. It didn't flag it.
Okay.
all right, so we can resolve this with a simple hyphen, is that
No.
correct?
Yeah.
No,
I'd rather see
One word.
one word, townwide.
Sure, you
Townwide.
could do that.
Let's go
Okay.
with that. One word.
so one word, townwide is one word, everyone feel comfortable with that?
Well, Microsoft Word won't,
It
Well,
will.
they're saying that it will.
but that's okay.
So you made the motion,
I amend my motion to change the word townwide to one word instead of 2.
and you seconded.
I second it, and now, seeing no further, you wanna vote on them individually, get it out of the way, and move on, or do you wanna do them as a group? Oh, we have to do it as a group, Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Ms. Kavaka's not here, Mr. Costello, yes, Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes,
Mr. Hanlon.
say yes.
I'm sorry, I should have, did you first, sorry,
No problem.
alphabetical
I'm
thing.
I'm not offended. Yes,
Mr. Piper,
Yes,
okay, Len,
Yes,
Mr. Levin. Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
I'll turn there, Ms. Beltran?
Yes,
Okay, so that's unanimous. Okay, so that one is now in the books. All right, go ahead, Mr. Levin.
okay, then we get to page. On the same page 5. That we reordered under section 1, 2-1-1. We reordered it in in the order of select board, planning board, school committee, moderator, housing authority, and redevelopment authorities.
Let me clarify, we reordered select board, planning board, school committee. Added town moderator, which was not in the original.
Is there a motion to accept that, addition of the moderator to the grouping?
Well,
So move.
On page
Ms. Volkring. Seconded by Mr. Hutchinson, did I hear that?
no, I can't find out where we are.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Page 5,
Page 5.
26.
page 5.
Got it, okay.
All right. Originally in the language, it said select board, school committee, housing authority, planning board, they didn't follow the sequence. So we reordered it to select board, planning board, school committee. Then added town moderator, which was not in the original language at all, and then continued.
Oh, got it, okay,
That was so we both reordered and added.
right.
So
But the motion is simply to the addition,
of model,
And the reorder.
but isn't the whole reordering? Aren't we a separate matter?
No, because this was a change from language we had previously voted on, because we had
Okay.
accepted chapter 4,
Okay,
so we're changing that language.
All right, Mr. Hammond, go right ahead, sir.
do we have a second to this motion?
No.
Mr. Pizer seconded, Ms.
Okay.
Coltrane made the motion, this is for the town moderator, Mr. Bolton.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hammond, discussion, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I'm just looking at page 5.
Yep.
Select board, planning board, yada, yada, yada. Then if you go down a couple of pages, you know, the next section after section 1 is the select board. Then the planning board, then the school committee, then the moderator. There's no section after that for the housing authority or redevelopment.
And we can discuss that, that's
Okay.
fine, but.
Are they in a different location or?
No, and we can discuss that, but let's just take the vote on what we're
Okay.
doing first.
Okay.
It's a good point that came up today, and we'll discuss that. All right, so, any further discussion on moderator? Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Ms. Cochran, no, she's not here. Costello, yes. Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes,
Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Levin?
Yes.
Mr. Pizer?
yes.
And Ms. Bolton?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous. Okay, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, we're gonna go back, you're gonna go back.
I
to
want to address
Okay.
Mr. Hanlon's question now, because that's a valid point. The reasoning that those two, housing authority and redevelopment authority, don't have their own sections is because there was nothing further in the charter about them. We didn't create, so in other words, the select.
Okay.
board-
I got it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else,
There-
nothing to put in
There
there.
was, now, we could put something else in there if we wanted to, including we could move the. So if you note, we have select board of 5 members, a planning board of 5 members, school committee of 7 members, who shall be elected for 3-year overlap, a town moderator. And then we have housing authority of 5 members, 4 to be elected, 1 to be appointed. We could simply say a housing authority of 5 members. And then say redevelopment authority of 5 members and create sections that say there shall be 4 members to be elected and put the rest of that in another section, if we wanted to create sections for them. That's something, and again, for consistency,
Somebody's gonna
not,
ask that.
not a bad idea,
well, that applies to logic,
correct?
Right.
It does.
Is that engineering logic?
it is,
Okay.
it is.
And I don't have a
For
problem,
most engineers.
and I didn't have, I just simply, when I created the first draft and then the subcommittee looked at it. I didn't want to create any new language because we hadn't voted on it. I just wanted to move things around that we had agreed on. But I have, if Mr. Levin will just take the note, I'm happy to move that and create
Section,
sections for
Yeah.
each that just,
you should probably do that.
they're all consistent, okay?
Can I,
Spider, go right ahead.
just to be clear. This is correct. But lest we be confused, 4 to be elected of the housing authority, three of them townwide and one of them elected as by a tenant's election,
What?
tenant.
Tenants,
The
Housing
tenants
authority
get to
tenants.
elect one of their own to be a member of the housing authority. So indeed, four people are elected and therefore it's correct here, but this committee, since this is our charter that we're, these are the changes we're making, we should understand that it's not that four of them are elected townwide and one of them is appointed usually by the governor or someone. It's that four of them are to be elected. How they're elected isn't stated.
Okay.
Well, I think that makes the case that we should have a section now on that, because that'll be lost. For
Well,
future generations will get that,
The
right?
clerk, that's the clerk's
Clerk will know that,
responsibility.
okay?
I guess the other question is that by state statute?
It is.
Or if it's by state, that goes back to being consistent, so we don't have to put it in there.
Well, I could just indicate one elected per state law.
Yeah,
Per state law, and then one appointed per state law.
that is okay, but I don't think it's necessary. That's my feeling. What we have reflects reality.
Can I just,
Stoltrink?
so as voter service chair, when we are trying to figure out who we might have at candidates night, we look at the charter. I remember doing it. Because you forget, how is that housing authority? I remember it's different. So if it's spelled out in the charter, that would be helpful to voter service.
So it seems like there's an appetite to put a section in for these two items, to be consistent.
I mean, if we're going to have a section,
Sure.
No, it makes perfect sense.
why can't we put that information in?
Well,
But anyway, that's,
I would suggest using the wiggle word that we have in there to be elected in accordance with applicable law.
Yep, I'll keep it that way. For both elected in accordance with applicable law and appointed
but once,
in accordance with applicable law. I'll do that.
so after four to be elected per applicable law.
No.
If we left off the comma after elected, it would read four to be elected and one to be appointed in accordance with applicable law. And that would end up solving,
That's,
because the applicable law just recently changed.
We're on page
We're still on
Five.
page 5.
I'm still on page 5.
So then the voter service person would have to call town hall, the
They
town
would have
clerk,
to look.
and find out what the real situation is.
Yeah.
so I apologize, Larry, now I'm confused. Of the four, one is elected by the tenants. So, and then one is appointed by, in accordance with applicable law. Is that the last part?
That's a true statement, and that's the present situation. But the problem is,
Who makes the appointment there? Then,
I believe it's been the governor,
oh, okay, all right.
but I don't think that we need to put that in, because if the state makes another change.
Yeah, okay,
Well, it's actually that department that Tim talked about. The $6 billion department is the one that actually manages public housing authorities. I can't remember the
Yep.
initials. And I believe they're the ones that appoint the member to the board of directors for the public housing authority. That's my understanding.
okay, Mr. Allen?
So once again, if you look at this document, select board, there's 10 subsections, planning board, there's 7 subsections. But, in order to keep the housing authority and the redevelopment authority happy, so that we didn't leave them out.
We'll put them.
I mean, you're just gonna have the housing authority, and then one section, one sentence that says the same thing.
Correct. Well, it's not gonna say the same thing. I'm gonna move it from,
No,
but yeah,
but it's not going to go on for 10
nope,
subsections.
nope.
One, so,
One sentence.
Yeah, so it's right. Go ahead.
So I guess I don't understand yet,
Yeah,
why in the subsection or whatever. We can't put in our charter that one of the elected. Is. One of those four elected is elected by the tenants.
Well,
I've read that someplace.
yeah,
Is it
we're
in-
back to the same situation we've been dealing with throughout. Until, this was one of the worst acts of state government, and that's really taking a leap to make a statement like that. They announced that there should be a tenants representative on every housing authority. And then they couldn't come up with a method of doing it. And there was like a 3-year period in which there was a horrible mess. My concern is,
What if they change it?
the more specific we are, the more likely we are to be in conflict with state law the next time they make a change. And therefore, it's working. I probably should have not edified.
It keeps us consistent with what we've done throughout our work here, is we've relied on state law. And it's,
My belief is that's probably why it's written the way it's written, even here now, rather than being more detailed.
well, I'm coming around full circle, because I guess I was the one who asked, where was the housing authority and where's the redevelopment authority?
Yep.
But based on what you've said and explained, I'm almost like, well, why don't we just leave it the way it is? It's fine the way it is, you know?
Yeah, I mean, all you're gonna do is write that and then turn around and create a section and write it again.
Leave it the way it is.
I mean. To be consistent,
To be
I'm not sure in that case, the consistency adds any value.
It doesn't, I agree, the consistency does not add value, but it does at least create, it does establish equal footing as a town-wide elected body. So it's not gonna cost us anything. Doesn't cost us anything, it merely creates consistency, and there's no real harm in it. Is it absolutely necessary? No. Is it additional verbiage? Not really, I'm gonna move it from one to another. But it's just so that everything looks even. And sometimes appearances are important, so I think that's a reasonable appearance to have. To say that we looked at all of the townwide elected bodies and created a section that described them, at least to some degree.
has anybody looked at, is there a bylaw for the housing authority? Do you know?
No. State law.
It's all state law, so they have no policies or.
They might.
Yeah.
Those would be internal though,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be
So they would follow state law. Okay,
regarding what their authority is.
right, all right.
Same with the redevelopment authority. Which no one in town can explain to me what it does.
So,
all right, so if we're in a good place with that, we'll leave it as,
well, wait a minute,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Len.
are we proposing that we create? Section 6 and 7? And basically just.
We move that language to 6 and 7.
And what are you
No.
gonna put there under, what are you gonna
You
put
wanna
there?
take it out of here?
I thought we were
But if you
happy.
take it out of general provisions, then then you're making an inconsistency there.
Leave it in here and then add the sections.
Yeah, you can't, I don't. These are the
This is
ones,
a list.
these are the ones, we have a list of who we're electing.
Right,
Well, I'm leaving the housing authority of 5 members, leaving that in that section.
Okay,
I'm taking the remainder of that, 4 to be elected. And 1 to be appointed in accordance with applicable, that will be the language of the new section.
okay. However, if you're going to do that, for clarification's sake, I would like to see the comma after
Oh, no, I
to be elected. Yeah,
delete second comma.
right. Okay.
Okay,
All right,
with
so
that
you
said,
feel comfortable with that?
yeah, well, hang on a second.
All right.
Because we need to document this. We're not redlining the document tonight because we need to leave that document alone. Because we'll lose control of it. We already have enough problems with it. So, section 5, we're basically gonna, from the comma 4 is gonna be struck in section 1 general provisions, correct?
Correct.
Well,
And then,
You said section 5.
I'm sorry, chapter 2, my bad, I'm page 5.
Chapter
Okay.
2,
Page
section 1, 2-1-1.
Right, and so then we're
After
gonna,
housing authority of 5 members, everything else. A period will be put there, the remainder will be struck.
and we're doing,
It's actually a comma or
Well, a period,
semicolon.
like I said, the period will be put there, the remainder will be struck.
right, and so under.
No, I think,
Oh, sorry, he's right, to a semicolon.
right.
Yeah,
The remainder to the semicolon will be struck, up until, not including.
Okay, and then under redevelopment authority, the same is gonna happen.
Yeah, after members, everything from there until the period will be struck,
And at members, instead of that being the semicolon, that's gonna become
the period.
Wait a minute. A redevelopment authority of
5 members.
okay, that's a
Period.
period because it's the last
It's the last one
on
on
this
the list.
list. Got it.
So then we're gonna create sections 6 and 7 further down in this chapter 2, right?
Yep.
Correct.
oh, right, for the new.
And what's the language gonna be for that? The whole thing again?
The stricken language,
Just the stricken?
just the stricken language. With the phrase a housing authority,
Right,
in the title. Maybe I think, do we add, should we say? Shall consist of,
You know, you could solve all these problems by saying at the beginning of this, that, after each town election, and the effective date of this charter, the town shall elect the following, the following boards and offices, and take this list out and just do sections for each one of these items. I mean, that's what Len's complaining about. I mean, you know, he's saying, you said it here and now you're gonna say it here.
no, I'm not, we're actually saying two, that was a question, I wasn't complaining about. It. I just was trying to understand if we were gonna repeat everything in both places and. we're
Well,
not.
right,
We're
that's,
not.
and if you eliminated this list, you wouldn't need to do that.
No.
Yeah, but Martha's point is that the list is a useful list.
Well, but she'll have the sections, right, Martha?
yeah, I think that, I understand what you're saying, I think that's useful too. Either way, there's,
Just an idea.
and it's a valid one, but. So then we would be reordering, but it's not necessarily quite as clear because each of the sections this is a list in terms of who is there, who's to be elected. The sections then obviously go into more detail about each. And I just don't want there to be any confusion about who gets elected within that section when you start talking about other things. I understand you're right. And we could do it that way. We could literally eliminate all of this and just simply have the list. But we're trying to keep some measure of consistency as well.
Before we frame the motion, should the last word under 2-1-1 be officers?
Yes,
Thank you.
that's true. That's a.
Versus offices, you're right, yeah. Good pickup, that's a good pickup.
As a side note, the fact that I looked at this for many hours, there's a lot more of that in this document, okay? Cause spell checking, grammar checking was going crazy in Word, it's much more advanced than it was when probably this was
Oh,
done.
God, yeah.
And we may have to come back and visit a bunch of those things, but it was just flagging off, and I didn't touch any of it, it was flagging it like nobody's business. Okay. So now. Are we gonna have a motion to do adding 6 and 7? And can we do officers in that, or do we have to do 2, 3 separate motions?
No, I don't see why we can't, do it in one motion, just take care of both of those elected positions or elected, boards. Your motion,
I would make that motion.
Mr. Pfizer makes the motion,
I'll second.
Mr. Bullock seconds it. Any discussion, any further discussion on the changes to that list? Seeing none, take a vote. Mr. Bulletin,
Yes.
Mr. Costello, yes. Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Levin,
Yes,
Mr. Pfizer.
Yes.
And Ms. Voltrain.
Yes,
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, so that concludes that section, Mr. Levin, want to move on to the next correction or change?
fine.
Take your time.
All right, I got too many things going on here. I think the next thing we're dealing with is the reversal. Oh, no, hang on. I've gotten out of sync now. How the hell did I do that? It's all your fault, man.
I blame Joe.
I would like Mike.
Okay. Either way.
I can take the heat.
He hasn't been here. We want him to feel
I
like he's
blame it on the
welcome.
Hasanova.
There you go.
We want him to feel like he's back in the fold. Oh, I know what it is. So it's, under the moderator. It's, hang on, that's the planning board. Under the moderator. I'm getting it, give me a second.
There was a switch between 2 and 3. 3-5-3 and 3-5-3, yeah.
Yeah.
2-5-2 and 2-5-3 from the original document, we reversed the order of those.
So the way this document reads tonight is right.
Is what that's the change we made.
Okay. Do we need, a motion to do that? Motion to make that reversal?
so move.
Okay, Ms. Beltran, any second? Mr. Hutchinson?
What are we doing?
2-5-2 and 2-5-3 were reversed.
They were
In the
reversed because
original
it reads better in chronological order of his responsibilities. They were just reversed.
We're talking about page 9.
Yeah, I got it.
So 2-5-2 and 2-5-3 in the original document were in a reverse order,
Oh, I see.
okay? Does that
Do
help
we?
you?
Do we need to make, I mean, this is part of
We
our,
made votes on periods and.
no, I understand that, but, we're reordering the whole document and we're going to end up voting our
On the whole
feeling that the document as a whole has been
Yeah.
reordered. We're not taking every time we've made a change. I just wonder why, whether this needs a motion.
Well, we're doing it because we went off, we did a renumbering effort, and part of that renumbering effort, we did some of these changes within, not in the bigger renumbering reorganization effort, but within the content of the document. So I don't know whether that's what I believe we did. Does that need to have some kind of approval beyond the 4 of us that met?
No, I mean, yes, but I think that what we're going to do at the very end
Right.
is we're going to say, this is our recommendation for the reordering and renumbering, and this is just one of the many examples.
I mean, we're.
I agree with you. I think that, there's at least 2 items that we should as a board, vote on, and the one that we've already voted on. Is taken care of, that's the one that we got rid of, 3-1-3A, got rid of it.
Yeah.
So we vote on that one now, and then I think we can go through the rest
We
of the
didn't
document.
vote on that one yet.
We haven't, I think we should vote on it now, because I think we're up to that point.
I know,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not on that point?
well, the point is, are we gonna have to vote on this swapping of these two.
No, I think Mr. Pines is
We're
correct.
sitting here beating our gums, but why don't we just make a motion to do it and be done with it? and
Yeah,
move
I
on?
think that'll be lumped into all of the other clerical things, but I think there was 2 or 3 issues that had to have the, knowledge of the whole committee before we make the change. Mr. Hanley,
Well, I'm gonna move that we approve the numbering of 2-5-2 and 2-5-3.
Second,
I don't want to be a stickler, but I think you read those wrong, so is it 3-1-3A and 3
No, we're before that.
Talking, I'm back where Lynn is.
Yeah, right, let's just do it.
Oh, you're
We
gonna
don't
do
need
it? Okay, you're gonna
That's
do
just
it?
it.
All right.
Okay,
You guys wanna do
Just
it?
do it and be
Let
done.
me
with
do
it.
it. Or you want me to do
All
it?
right, no, I'll do it, that's the end of the discussion, we made the switch, okay, Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Costello's yes, Mr. Hanlon,
Yes,
Mr. Hutchinson,
yes,
Mr. Lawler.
Yes.
Mr. Levin,
Yes.
Mr. Pizer.
Yes.
And Ms. Beltran.
Yes,
Okay, very good, so that is in the books.
Okay. Moving right along.
now can I make my original motion?
Wow, you are
To
pushing.
delete 2-5-3.
No, you. Why are we deleting 2-5?
Oh, yeah, from,
Yes, yeah, you have to
that
do that
document.
from the original.
Oh, no, you're on, I understand.
AKA 3-1-3A.
So you're making a motion to delete 3-1-3A.
Yeah,
I will second that motion if I may.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Costello, yes, Mr. Hanlon,
yeah,
Mr. Hutchinson.
yeah,
Mr. Lawler.
Yeah.
Mr. Levin,
Yes.
Mr. Pizer.
Yes,
Ms. Beltran.
yes,
Okay,
Who seconded that?
I did.
Pizer. And do we need another quick vote to get rid of the B on 3-1-3?
That's just remembering it.
Okay, renumbered, okay, that's all set, we're moving on.
Wait.
Hang on. And how about the letter, the word D?
Can we just let that be like an
That's
option?
a
typo.
That was
but a
we
typo.
agreed with that.
Okay.
That was part of Mr. Hanlon's original motion.
yeah.
Okay, very good.
Okay, moving right along. I think that's it, but let me just check. Oh, no, we have one. I don't know, you have to do that, but give me a second. So on page 13,
Yes, referenda.
Yeah,
section 4, section 3, excuse me, the new section 3. Our esteemed member, Mr. Bolden, suggested that word should be
What page are you
referenda.
on?
Well, you said he's on page 13.
That's just encouraging.
it's about 2/3 of the way down the page.
Page 13. yeah.
Section 3 is in green, the 4 is next to it in red.
Yeah, they may not see
Well,
that
what-
Just above 4-3-1, just above 4-3-1.
on page 13.
Says referendum, no, maybe you don't see that either.
Yeah. Well,
Just changing referendum to referenda.
you know, we
Okay.
don't need to.
And that's not gonna require a vote, because that's, or
just
should we vote on that one?
correction.
Hmm,
Well, no, because referendum was the word that
The
is
right word, right?
is in the existing, or is in the existing current charter. So we are changing a word from the existing current charter, and we had established a precedent that said we were going to vote on those.
I'll move that we change it an M to an A.
Okay, very
UM, yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I will once again join my friend from across the way.
Second it, and is there any discussion on that? Alphabet soup change out, nothing, Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Costello's a yes, Mr. Hanlon,
Yes,
Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Levin,
yes,
Mr. Pizer.
Yes,
Ms. Beltran,
Yes,
very good, unanimous, so that's all straightened out. All
okay,
right,
the next one. Give me a second, I gotta find it in the new
I think
document.
it's gonna be page, I don't wanna jump the gun, but 19.
No. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm in. Why am I not? I'm out of sync again, give me a second. You think it's page 19?
Yes, 3/4 of the way down, page 19, administrative organization. Does everybody have that page?
Yeah.
It is,
I think we missed one, hang on a second,
okay,
recall. On page 14.
14, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun, 14, what do you got on 14?
Well, it originally said recall of elected office holders. And my note here, that maybe I wrote it down wrong in my stupor. After doing this for 2.5
All
hours,
right, no,
we decided to change it to just recalls.
The basis of what Len is talking about is that there were two sections on recalls and they belong together. Recall of elected, townwide elected officials and recall of town meeting members. And we decided it'd make more sense to call it recalls and have subheadings. Townwide, town meeting members.
Right. So Len, don't have a strikeout for that townwide elected office holders. That is a correct subheading.
So that's what I couldn't make head nor hair of what I wrote as a note when I did it. So we're gonna say townwide recalls?
Yeah, except one, it
One
should be
word.
one word.
Townwide elected office holders. We're not gonna, so recalls will stay, it's just we said, we'll change section 4 to just be called recalls. There'll be a first subheading for townwide, one word, elected office holders. And then there will be a second subheading for town meeting members.
Which follows.
Where is that?
Now it says elective, is that right? Or is that wrong? Elected?
Elected, yes, shouldn't be elective, should be elected. We still have a second section, which you could change that.
Okay. Give me a second.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. that's-
Okay, we have townwide elected office holders and recall of representatives, so this should say just,
No, we should also get rid of the section.
right,
We should get rid of the section and then.
Document
12.
and this is recalls, section 5.4,
Yeah, no, you're fine, that's fine, yeah.
that should not be struck.
Yeah, that should be just a subheading.
Yeah, okay.
But then. All right, with that, and then we're gonna keep going down. After 4-4-11 on
Page
on
16.
page 16. We're gonna strike that next section, section 5. Just gonna strike the words section 5 and recall of
What page again?
16.
16.
yeah,
16.
up at the,
So it'll now just
Near
read
the top.
representative town meeting. members.
Representative town meeting members as a subheading, and that will be renumbered to 4-12, 4-4-12.
Oh, I see, so section 5 is coming out
Right,
and recall is coming out.
and
and,
all,
and it's just gonna be a subheading, and it'll be 4-4-12, because it's only one provision, and it keeps referring to all of the provisions above. So it just made sense to keep it as the same, because it does say, and we have to generally provide it in section 7, we'll have to change that language as we go through for consistency, but we'll change the references. That's part of our reworking, because we'll have to, once we've agreed as a group to the reordering, renumbering as an optimal, we'll change it.
All right, Len, you feel comfortable?
I'm comfortable.
You wanna move on to the next one?
We're gonna
So
vote
we're
on
gonna vote on this?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're
So we're gonna vote on both things together?
yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay,
Well-
we have a motion.
Hang on.
Joe, what do you have, sir?
So I'm starting to rethink recalls versus recall. And the usefulness of saying recall, by the time you get to, if somebody's looking it up independently, and you get to the recall of representative town, if you just say representative town meeting members, you're a couple of pages beyond where it would have said recall. And so it's good to have the proximity of that word next to who you were calling. Just a matter of readability.
If we're doing that, then we would have to add it. For
To the other one,
consistency
right.
to the other
You
one.
would have to do that. I would leave it to your judgment.
But I would just say that again, from a table of contents standpoint, they will be one after the other. So finding it initially will be immediate. So people should be, if they're looking to recall, if you're looking to recall a town meeting member versus a town, you will see it right in the table of contents right now.
Take that point. And, okay,
Comfortable with that, Joe? You want?
It's, you know, it's again, it's six of one, half dozen.
yeah,
of the
it
other,
is.
so
I mean, it's
really
a,
is.
it's
So,
a,
So in this document, we have to change what's on page
I
2.
mean, it depends on which style manual you're using.
I know what's coming down to.
Yeah, don't worry about the table of contents.
Okay.
We'll fix that.
All right.
That was an effort in its own right.
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
good.
create-
I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, that's, like I said, there's a lot of
Following up.
we tried to focus on the substantive stuff.
Yeah,
All right, so I believe there was a motion by Mr. Hanlon, second by Mr. Pisa. We're gonna take both of these.
No, that
No?
hasn't, there's been no
Was that
motion.
the one before?
Yes.
All right. I have to admit, I lost track.
You just made that up.
Is there a motion to make the two changes in the recall section?
Which
Mr. Lawler, you make that motion?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Levin seconds it?
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Mr. Costello's a yes. Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Levin?
Yes.
Mr. Pisa?
Yes,
Ms. Voltrin?
yes.
Very good. Okay, moving on to the next one, your convenience, Mr. Levin?
Yeah, we can figure it out too. Okay,
Page 19.
in section 5-4, is that where we're at, Steve?
Correct. Former, yeah,
Yeah,
What page is that?
it's
Right.
page 19.
19.
There was a conflict. In 5-4.
Wouldn't even call it confident.
It's just repetitive. It's repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, with section D on page 17.
right.
Article on 19 is one that we reworked one night. And I think we voted on this wording and we liked it. But just as a matter of fact, it says the same thing as, basically the same thing as D. And this is, I believe, under the town managers.
Or should we substitute this for D?
No, I,
Because this was the one when incident to any such reorganization with the approval of the advisory and finance shall direct transfer of all. This was the one we discussed. Because I remember discussing very specifically
Yeah,
the
I do too.
advisory and finance committees involvement.
There was a big component that night of 5-4.
Correct. So.
So you're saying not, okay, though,
I would move to replace 5-1 paragraph D with the language in 5-4.
are you gonna move it?
I am so moving.
except. Do we want to say the town manager may? Because all,
Right, you may be able to get rid of that because it's, you're on the laundry list now, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
what page are you on?
Page 19.
Okay, but you said there's been leafing back and forth.
Yeah, 19 and page 17 are the two that are
Okay.
very similar, Joe.
All right,
So if we go to 7.
The one on 19, we worked up one night and voted on. And I don't think it came to anyone's attention that the section D on page 17 is very close. So what's the pleasure of the board to mesh them together?
Yeah.
I would replace that language, starting with the words with select board
Yeah.
approval.
yeah, Yep.
So starting with the words with select board approval through the end. Use that language and replace 5-1D with that language. Keeping at the end the
I see.
appropriate
And
semicolon.
eliminate,
And then eliminating the existing 5-1D. So eliminate the existing 5-1D.
Yeah.
And replace it with the language in 5-4, starting with the words with.
And this becomes capitalized.
Nope,
No,
no,
no, sorry, right, it
it
doesn't.
continues, and it just goes through and we have a semicolon at the end.
And you did that in the form of a motion?
I did that in the form of a motion.
Okay,
And-
so-
and
so-
you're-
so hang on
we're
a
gonna
second, hang on a
eliminate
second.
administrative organization as well. That title,
Yes,
Okay. You have a motion?
eliminating the entire 5-4, including the subheading administrative organization.
Okay. Is everyone, Ms. Pfizer, go right ahead, sir.
I'm gonna.
You gonna second that? Okay.
Okay, so.
Now discussion. Is everyone clear as to what just transpired there?
Joe, I'm happy to come over and show you.
Yeah.
I get it. This is never the fun part. This is why no one should see the sausage being made.
So this is E,
D, so.
D, okay,
So we're gonna take this language out,
this line,
this language, you're gonna take this
I was
language
doing
out,
this at
and we are going to replace it
6:30 was.
with this language starting
Thinking
here.
that's a
with
reasonable.
select
Telling you, you gotta
approval and
watch that
subject
comedy
to
skit on
all
how
the
they
rest of this,
abbreviated.
because this is what we
It's
discussed
funny, just like
as
this.
a group.
Everybody thinks it's gonna take 2 seconds to change a few
Okay.
numbers.
this
All of a sudden there's fights and
is a
people
list
don't
of
talk to
towns
each other
for the
anymore.
most, well, I guess it puts down
This
into
is,
here.
this is gonna be part of that same list of powers. Exactly.
Okay,
It's just, it covers the exact same thing, but this was the one we discussed.
Okay, got it.
when, any minute.
So a
Stand,
clarification,
go right ahead, sir.
a clarification of the motion should,
Behave yourself.
I got what you're talking about.
I'm
You're
excited.
taking this out and you're putting this
There.
in its place.
Yep.
And then you're gonna have to no,
have to
you don't have,
re-
you don't have.
If
No, that's the last one,
E,
section
that's
5.
Right.
We have a TOC issue, but that's a second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second for Mr. Pisa. Discussion. Any further, Ms. Volkman, go right ahead.
So am I correct that, 5-4 with some changes is going to become D?
Correct.
Exactly right.
And Martha, the changes are, the town manager may is gonna be struck.
Yeah,
At the end of that section, there'll be a semicolon instead of a period,
right.
and the header for section 6. Administrative reorganization, all that's gonna go away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. That's it.
Okay, everybody feels comfortable with that? We'll take the vote at this time. Very good. Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Costello is a yes. Mr. Hanlon,
Yep,
Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes.
Mr. Lawler.
Yes.
Excellent. Mr. Levin,
Yes.
Mr. Pisa,
Yes.
and Ms. Volkman.
Yes,
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Levin.
I think it's, yeah. Okay. Let me just get caught up here on the one you're actually working on. I think it's on page 20.
Yep.
Under chapter 6. We added the word,
You created the entire section.
well, yeah, we created that whole section, but we said statutorily created. I'm sorry, we struck out the word created. And we replaced it with the word required.
Right.
So it says statutorily required public bodies. This was a new section that was created as part of the reorganization and renumbering.
This was a new chapter for
Yeah,
you.
a new
That
chapter.
would have been section 8 or the chapter 8 that David put together before he left.
No, chapter 8 was the next one.
Oh, okay.
The next one that he created. This was one that was created as part of the reorganization. So David created a chapter, former chapter 8 in the draft we had, which was all the charter created public bodies. And I mimicked that for the ones that are required by state law. That's all.
So let me ask you a question. Did we vote this verbiage into the charter yet?
We did not vote, all the verbiage is voted except for the words statute, except for the title, statutorily required public bodies.
Okay.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion and a
Second.
second, Mr. Bolton. Any further discussion on the word required?
It's actually the whole,
Oh, the whole
title, statutory.
statutory required public bodies. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Bolton.
Yes.
Mr. Costello, yes. Mr. Hanlon.
Yeah.
Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes.
Mr. Lawler.
Yes.
Mr. Levin.
Yes.
Mr. Paiza.
Yes,
And Ms. Beltran.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Mr. Levin.
Okay, further down on that page, and in paragraph B. There is, and we may not, I'm just bringing this up, we may not have to vote on it. In the fourth sentence. It says subcommittee, paren D, appointments committee, quote, there was no closing paren.
That's a typographical error.
So
I
I'm
think
just saying we're doing that.
We're doing that.
Scrivener's
Yeah.
error.
Scrivener's error,
Okay.
exactly, good point.
We closed some parentheses and we, I'm sorry, we closed some quotes and we added a few parentheses around numbers, right?
Right.
thank you.
I don't think that was anything earth shattering. Anything further, Mr. Levin?
I think not. There may be one thing, just give me a second.
Oh, and Mr. Hanlon, do you have anything while Mr. Levin's looking through the last of it?
Well, I got it.
That we already
You know, this
voted.
could be classified as nitpicking,
Oh,
No.
but I'm an
by
engineer.
all means.
Hit that next.
I can pick all I want.
Yeah. go ahead.
So, you know, I noticed. And this, the page we're currently on, the statutorily required public bodies, is a perfect example of this. We got a chapter 6. Now titled statutorily required public bodies. And then we have a section 1.
Yep.
And if you go right down, which says advisory and finance committee, when you go to the next line, it says, it goes 6-1-1, which would be the subsection. So my point is that all of these should be, that should be section 6-1,
Oh,
not chapter 1, not section 1,
No,
section 6-1.
and this is an interesting engineering edit.
Are you an engineer?
No, I never was. But this is good. I mean, this is what you do. Thank you.
I have to admit.
Oh, you're in agreement.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Which is
all right.
Can you explain it again?
So my point is that you go to the table of contents, chapter 1.
It's gonna make Steve crazy though.
yeah, well, Steve will tell you that legally. And also in standard writing, when you create a new chapter. You renumber sections. You do not create. Chapter 6 does not have section 6-1. And then 6-1-1.
Well, why does it have subsection 6-1-1?
You, because we have. Well, again, theoretically, you don't, but this was the way the charter did it, so we didn't.
So maybe this is oil and water, this is
Could very well
lawyers
be.
and engineers.
Yeah.
Well,
Probably.
As an engineer, I would make it section
6-1.
6-1,
Right.
advisory and finance. committee. I'll leave it up to you.
well, it's chapter 6. It's
That's
section,
clear.
it's section 1. Right? And under that, we have some subsections that talk about appointment and organization, hearings and reports. And those are all, so from what I learned about numbering and nomenclature and all this stuff, which basically we can thank the military for foisting on us years ago. That is the way you would do it. It's chapter, section, subsection. So essentially, some people would argue that A should be listed as 6-1-1A, 6-1-1B.
Now you're mixing numbers and letters.
Yeah, but that's.
So that's the way, I'm gonna tell you, I sat on the numbering committee for
All right,
Digital
then
Equipment Corporation,
I'll go along with that.
and that's.
You go along with me, I'll go along.
Right,
with you.
and, but I'm not suggesting we do that, because I just think it's not worth it. To me, you could take the A, B, and C out. but that's okay. But I hear what you're saying, I'm not disagreeing with you.
You're not incorrect, you're merely just.
Inconvenient.
What I would,
And nitpicking.
what I wanna say is that what we have here relates to the current charter.
Yeah,
Right.
I understand, we're trying not to, we're not trying to,
And that was the other point, it was so town meeting would be able to compare and contrast
As
with
much as
nomenclature
possible.
with which they were familiar. And that's for ease of town meeting, especially in a process as complicated as this.
Right.
And Mr. Levin, are we all done?
we
with
are down
corrections?
from my notes. Anybody has anything else, Larry or Steve, that I missed? Cause now we're gonna get to the
Okay, so
fun,
now,
we're gonna get to the fun stuff.
Now,
everyone's gonna take an opportunity as best they can to review this prior to our next meeting. And, any changes or corrections, we'll make them, or we could vote this, at least a document that we're willing to go forward if you like the next part of the presentation here tonight, because this is where it gets a little confusing.
It's a lot confusing.
Yes.
Mr. Hanlon, give your hand up, sir. I'm sorry, I missed it.
Well, you suggested that we would review it and discuss it at the next meeting, but are we gonna vote on this numbering system, or is that?
I think ultimately, I guess the question is, do we first want to vote on just, not on this document itself, but conceptually the sequencing that we put in?
That's a good point, because that's gonna lead into what we're gonna talk about next too. Is it the pleasure of the board to vote or make a motion to accept the numbering,
Well, the sequencing.
the sequencing of,
And the organization and putting it together in this organized form.
So moved.
Second,
seconded by Mr. Lawler, any discussion? Ms. Volkman, I'm sorry.
I personally would like to read the whole thing. I have
No,
not read it.
understanding that we're not accepting, we're not voting on the text. We're just, are you happy, or could you be happy with the organization of the document?
Well, it looks pretty good, but I haven't sat
Yeah.
down and thought about all that.
And I get that too. I would like a chance
I've
to
only
study.
looked at half of it and.
I'm sorry, Joe, you want a chance to study?
I would like to study it
Okay,
a little bit, and that's, I think, what Martha
we
said.
can still vote on it, and, it's up to you. Do you wanna vote on it, or you wanna wait?
No, we have people who haven't had a chance to. look
Okay,
it
then I
through
think it's fair.
And
It sounds
and
like
if they
it's gonna
have
be
other
good, but
suggestions,
I don't wanna vote on it yet.
yeah, if they have other suggestions, I'm perfectly happy to hear them.
Okay, and-
So that's fine.
And to jump ahead, I think we're gonna have our next meeting the 18th, so it's 2 weeks to review this at your
Give people
convenience.
time.
Is that a good amount of time?
Oh, yeah, that's. fine.
Yeah,
All right, and if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to any of the, I'm speaking for all four of us, but any of the four of the people in the working group, and we can explain why some things might have happened the way they did. And we'll certainly get everybody up to speed by the 18th, so everybody's comfortable.
You're more than welcome to come to my house when I start editing and sit there and look over my shoulder.
All right, so we're gonna put that on the agenda for the 18th to review that quickly and to vote on it as it is. All right, so that brings us to our second bullet discussion item. And this is an update on the discussion with town council regarding the articles. And the articles are what we're gonna put forth for town meeting in the fall. And we got some assistance today. We met with Kate McKay, town council. She was very helpful. We met for an hour and a half. I think it was quite a lengthy meeting. We covered a lot of material. And it came back to exactly what Mr. Pies talked about earlier, Mr. Bulletin, is how are we gonna present this in the very best uncomplicated light to town meeting, get the best chance of getting this information across. So I'd ask Mr. Bolton, Mr. Bolton, would you like to summarize the meeting with the town council?
Sure.
Go right ahead.
So the first thing that we needed to figure out, one of the challenges, obviously, in the creation of our charter, and as Mr. Pizer has said, others have commented on. In the past, when people have worked on our charter, they have added sections and removed sections, but they've left them in places that don't, if they've added a section, it didn't necessarily come up with the nice sequence and order like we just went through. They didn't necessarily lump things together, because when you change things, it became difficult to compare and contrast. So we spent a lot of time today discussing how to create a document sufficient for town meeting to compare and contrast with what we're proposing. The ultimate suggestion was, and I will work to do this, is I will create, much like the document that you've seen today with the reordered. What's missing from what that document contains is all of the additions that we have put in. What it doesn't contain is the deletions.
Right,
And what may happen, what could happen at town meeting is hypothetically, what if town meeting rejected one of our deletions? If town meeting rejected a deletion, then it would remain in the charter. But it could be randomly in anywhere, given the organization. I think that's why that's been a challenge. What was suggested, and I think was that what I will do is I will create a version of this revised, so in a new numerical order, the numerical order that we've been talking about, including not only the additions, but also the deletions moved to places where it makes sense. For example, the best example was we removed a lot of the departments. We took out the DPW and finance department, the planning department. I will put those back in under the chapter that we've created for town administration. So we will, again, as a committee, be recommending that town meeting delete those. But if town meeting should decide not to delete them, the first article that we would be presenting would be a request that town meeting reorder our existing charter as proposed, without any changes, just reorder the entire document. So if they approved that and did nothing else, we would have a charter that was reordered. But assuming town meeting approves that, then we would have a reordered charter, and then they would then be able to compare and contrast what it would look like with sections removed and sections added. So I put in the added language and I would put in the deleted language. So that way so if town meeting is then looking, and then, so that gets to then how we do our remaining articles. Rather than doing 37 articles and going completely crazy the way we did in 17, the idea was we would do first a simple, straightforward administrative one that addressed all of the typographical errors, the commas, the parentheses, the grammatical changes, all of that, just a purely administrative. This is just the correct stuff that we noticed was inadvertently missed the last time.
right,
Then we would start working perhaps chapter by chapter. So that town meeting would then be voting on, they would always be discussing the same section of stuff
Chapter by chapter.
of our revised version, correct? Well, hopefully by that point, they would have voted to change it, so that would now be our charter regardless. If they did nothing else, it would still be that, so chapter by chapter. So when they're talking about the legislative body, all of the motions, all of the changes would relate to the legislative body. Obviously, then the goal would be to encourage them, if they so wanted, to address a separate change, to move that change out, treat it like a budget line item. I'd like to segregate out this for discussion. So this way they could vote on a bucket of items, a tranche of items, and segregate out those that they wish to discuss further. And then we would certainly encourage that as being motions in advance to segregate out. So that way, there are going to be some changes that we made that people are going to look at it and hopefully we'll explain it. Yeah, that makes sense, and we don't really have an issue. And there are going to be others where people say, no, I have a debate with that. I want to understand this better, or I disagree. And that's great too. And they can segregate those out and have debate and discussion on those. But regardless as to what happens, then we'll have an order that will be, no matter what they do, we'll have an order that at least makes sense. So that if they take something out, it's no problem. If they leave it in, it's still no problem. But if we do it any other way, I think it became very, very confusing. But I liked the idea, especially doing it chapter by chapter. And some of these chapters, we looked, and other than a few things, there's really one or two things in them that we've changed. Some of them really are just more sequentially created, but
I mean, just to clarify a couple of things, is so it's taking the current charter that we have redlined, and like Steve said, and so, for example, in the case of the department, we're going to place it where it logically should be, but it's still gonna be indicated as deleted,
as proposed.
as proposed, excuse me. But none of the numbering is going to change. Because the numbering is just numbering.
That, let me get to, so the final motion, the final article. After all of the votes are taken, the final article will be to ask town meeting to approve a renumbering. To be done by, and we'll ask to be done by the town clerk in conjunction with this committee. So this committee will have one final meeting afterwards, just so the town clerk, if the town clerk has any questions as to what we intended as a group. There was an ability to, but that would be the final article to basically say, town meeting says, okay, now we've decided to accept these changes, we've decided to reject these changes. Prepare a document and renumber it accordingly.
So,
Mr. Pais, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Mr. Pais, go ahead.
After town meeting finishes its work, am I correct that this then goes to the legislature?
No, we clarify that. This does not go to the legislature because this is not a substance, this doesn't change any of the stuff. It goes to the AG's office for approval.
Legal review.
For legal review, but it does not go to the legislature. This is not a home rule petition. Because we're not changing
Form of
the
government.
form of government or any, so that the legislature only reviews those things that a charter commission is required for. That was what town council said, but she's gonna double check it, so.
Double
Yeah,
check.
that's back, but
The other question she couldn't answer, she thought maybe the town clerk, maybe you can do tonight, is what is our charge as the charter review committee, once we present this to town meeting? Does this committee cease after a yes or no vote? Can we come back and fix the document, or are we out of business?
I think if we ask for an article that allows us to continue to work with the town clerk to finalize, I don't think that should change anything.
we're an advisory committee, and we would simply be advising with the town clerk. I don't believe that there's a statement somewhere of our dissolution. Historically,
Okay,
once town meeting has ended. But that, you know, there's nothing to, nowhere does it say that we must dissolve. The way the commission, for example, they were.
That's
that was, I guess, my question. Okay, so that makes sense.
That's interesting, because the appointing committee, the moderator and,
Select board. and-
yeah, I mean, they can appoint a new review committee. And I don't think that there were a lot of constraints around any of that.
Does anyone, of all people, I should be asking this, does anyone remember the oath we took? I don't, but I mean, when we were sworn in. I always swore someone in for a very specific term.
No, I was sworn in to carry out the duties, et cetera, of the committee as dictated and follow the laws of the government and the Commonwealth and.
I'll find Kelly and beat her up, because she really should have come up with, you know, either specifically, you're there until I say you're not, or you're there until June 31st.
Well, how did the previous review committee
Finish.
manage across time?
there was, I could check, there was a database. And I would not accept the charge of a committee without a specific end date.
But I vaguely remember when I first moved to town, someone coming to town meeting with final articles or something. This is blurry because it's like 6 years ago, but did they present articles in bunches and so so you're not out of business?
No,
It's
they
just-
were not in business after town meeting,
Yeah,
but, well, we should,
so you're not out of
I only
business.
say that, I only say that because we're talking about, some of these articles are allowing us to put some finishing touches on our document.
Yeah.
So are we able to come back and do that? I just wanna make sure we are.
Kelly is the authority on this.
Yeah, we're gonna have it on.
All right, well, now we'll get the answer from her.
Yeah, I mean, the other
So
couple.
she's gonna attend the next meeting with us.
The other couple of things that came up is the reason for taking this approach, which is different than something that I suggested, is because one, it's trying to have the document be in the position that as we go through and ask people to make changes, like the paragraph D for the school committee, if that is not in a place where we want it, and they decide not to take it out, then we have to go back and start doing this. And so I think what we need to do is take these changes. One of the issues we have with the current copy you have is I need to go and do a review of the minutes to make sure everything is in it. And then we need to start picking it up and doing the cut and paste and heavy lifting of it. I would like to get that done before we meet again, so that's the document we start using, and all these other documents just get put on your bookshelf. And that's the one, and we have a way to track versions of it, because we need to start solidifying it, because it's not gonna very soon where we're gonna have to start writing the articles.
Is this also in conjunction with what Steve's gonna do?
Well,
Correct.
Steve and I will work together and get it
Oh,
done.
okay.
Yeah, we're gonna go through, we'll
You can
get,
come and hang out with us.
we'll get all of the changes.
Negative.
We'll make sure that the document reflects all of the changes that we as a committee have made based on our minutes, because there were some there was just one that I happened to notice was missing. I don't know if there are others. I noticed one, but it's just something I happened to notice. So we're gonna make sure that it's there. I will then do, when I will work at, I will then do a reordering consistent with what you've seen today, including, so I'll take this document, but I'll also move in the things that we're proposing be deleted and put those into different sections as well. That makes sense. So ultimately, hopefully we'll all agree that, again, even if hypothetically no changes are made, we like the order that things are in now.
And I think we're gonna mark it up differently in the fact that we're not gonna do strike through, deletions will be red and any additions will be green, because I think doing additions as red and deletions as red with strike through is very hard for the average person to pick out. That's a standard way of doing that. Some people don't like
I'm
it.
still gonna give you an issue with that, because I can certainly tell you, there are times that I cannot see the red versus the black. I'm red, green, brown colorblind, and so is about 30% of the male
Well, we'll figure
population.
some colors that we can see.
So you definitely need to make
Yeah,
it
that is
brighter.
my husband's
Yeah.
color deficient.
Well, we need to do something, because I find that that's very confusing, because you have to really zero in on it. So there's red with a strike and there's red with not a strike, and that's, especially if there's words and strike through and there's some new words, it's hard to kind of pick that out. So we'll figure out a way to
I
do
can
it.
always tell you that red underlined if you wanna do
Right.
it instead of
We can
strike
figure
through.
it out.
But that's fine.
Let me ask the rest of the committee, are there any thoughts that you've had along the way of how we might present this to town meeting, how we might break these into articles or buckets, Mr. Waller?
Let's just get this document together. That Stephen Leonard was holding. And march forward from there.
Okay.
I agree. I think once we see the document in the form,
Yeah.
it'll start making sense to us as to what makes sense to lump together and what needs to be individualized.
I mean, we really need, I think as a committee, we really need to put together, some things we have to get out there and be proactive in early on and going, if there's caucus meetings or anything, I know we're not supposed to do that maybe until it's actually, put on the warrant, but we've got a lot to do because the warrant opens on the 30th and closes on the 9th. So we have to be ready. We have to write all the
Ones when?
the article on, it opens on the 30th.
July 30th,
July.
August 9th.
Sorry, it closes on the 9th. And
And I guess just preliminarily, we figure we may have up to 10 articles, 9.
I thought it was up to 12. if
12,
we count
okay.
The administrative stuff, so yeah.
So we might see 12 articles.
And then
And
with obviously with certain issues clearly being likely to be separated out for discussion.
Yeah, I think. It's an excellent idea to have each chapter as an article, because some of them are just gonna go through, but that will give people the opportunity, the town, if we can call town meeting members people. That will give them the opportunity to focus. And your question about how it's gonna be presented, the real question is how it's gonna be presented to FinCom. Because anyone who's organized in opposition to something we've done will come to FinCom and make the statement there, or COPC. And theoretically, if you remember town meeting, which we all do, FinCom is the one who makes the presentation, and I don't think that we want to go out and make a very long presentation at the beginning. A quick presentation, because we're going to be doing it article by article.
Individually.
well, we asked the question about whether or not we would have any control of where we showed up in the warrant, like towards the
Yeah.
end. Can't do that. We also talked about possibly extending the discussion from 3 minutes to maybe 5 minutes or longer. We also talked about some maybe issues with, especially the part about the appointment of the A&F, that may raise some concerns with the moderator, and what do we do about that? So we raised a bunch of concerns. We don't have hard answers to them, but I think there's things we need to think about, and
Stan?
Did you also think about doing a special town meeting rather than doing, because I have no idea what's on the warrant. We probably won't know until August.
well, I think the part of the problem with that is the cost. That could probably cost you $40,000 or $50,000. With the voting system, with the voting system and the PAC TV and a whole bunch of other things.
We
I
looked
think
at
he
the
means-
numbers, but it's 25, it's at least 25 to $35,000
To do a town meeting.
to do a town meeting. So
And-
we don't want to add, but
And if we did that,
and depending on what else is there, you're right, it could be that we end up going to another day, and that's still.
give out his address.
But I appreciate that, but I think that at this point. We're at least proposing it, and if it looks like it's not going to work, then we can always withdraw it and move it to another time or ask for a special. But at least we should be ready to go if we're comfortable with being ready to go. I just think we're at that point where we've worked really hard and we've gotten there.
So
Mark?
12 articles is a lot, and probably what it would take. And how many articles are there commonly at town meetings, at fall town meetings?
21, 25, something like that.
As I said, remember how many articles there were the last time this came up.
Right, I think there was 37, or was it 34, 37 individual ones when the 2017 charter?
Yeah, but it's not so much the number of articles as how hard they are, and the chapter,
More discussion that might be generated.
yeah, chapter 1 will take 30 seconds. And chapter 2 will take, an hour, so.
I mean, as an exercise, I see 2 or 3 articles being controversial. 2 or 3
Sense, yeah.
corrections that we made or additions or subtractions. I think the vast majority, being a town meeting member, if this were to come in front of me. I have very little to, I mean, I certainly would bring up some, on 2 or 3 of them, certainly, we should be prepared for that. But I don't think it's riddled with a lot of controversial corrections.
So either.
And maybe we should go, Mr. Lawler, go ahead.
I just think that we should move forward, get the document together between Len and Steve. Take a look at it, digest it as Martha had suggested. And move forward from there, rather than surmise.
I think that's the plan. I think you're 100% right. I think that's where we're going, sort of just spitballing some ideas now, but I think that's exactly what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, the sooner we can get it in you guys' hands to start looking at and reading it and hopefully, make comments to it. This was an effort to just kind of build a structure. And now we can use that as, the numbering was probably something we needed to do it to make it more clear. But, it was just this whole idea about. The discussion with Kate today was very beneficial in trying to figure out how to put this together to give us the chance to be successful. And we may not be 100% successful, we'll be successful without having to go back and redo a whole lot of stuff. We'll either do it now or do it later,
Mr. Bolton, go right ahead.
So just to be clear, the document that we will create to provide to everybody for the next meeting, it's gonna contain a reordered version of the red line that we've done based upon this general framework. So there will be some things that will appear as completely new. Like, for example, what was the original chapter 8 will be a completely new section. Whether or not I do what Dave did was he renumbered. I'm gonna try and not renumber anything that's existing.
Right.
So in other words, it's going to look like, so it may say chapter 2 and section 1, the select board. And then it'll have the numbering, but the numbering will be from our current existing charter. So it won't have nice, neat numbering. It will be our current existing charter so that when people look at it and want to compare it to our current existing charter, they know exactly what they're comparing it to. Because if we renumbered it, then they would say, all right, what am I looking at?
Right.
So they're going to be looking at, so if it was originally can be in chapter 2, but was originally 4.2.1 through 4.2.6. It's going to say 4.2.1, 4.2, 4-2, whereas 1, all of that, so that they'll know exactly where in our current charter they're comparing it to. So it won't look as nice and neat as what's in front of you right now, but it will be an ability to compare apples to apples. And if we added pure language, then that's going to be identified somehow as brand new language. If we created, when we created a new section or a new, and we didn't really create much, most of everything was really kind of modified, but if we had a new paragraph under that, it'll be put in, it'll be marked as a new paragraph. So that somehow.
It
we'll
doesn't
figure
have
out-
a number from the current.
It won't have a number from the current, so we may create a numbering system for just new and create it that way. But it'll be something that identifies, it'll say new provision. And it'll have that, so that'll distinguish it from the things that are existing. So that's what we're gonna, it's gonna take a bit to do, but we'll get it done as soon as possible, so everybody can start
We'll get
getting
it,
through it.
we'll get it right out. I'm sorry. Ken?
I just want to clarify. So this will have the additions, but not the deletions.
No, it'll have both the
Everything.
additions and the deletions.
I have everything.
It'll have everything.
See, that's the problem with this thing we created, we've been talking about tonight. There was no easy way to do that, to reorganize it, renumber it. And so I had proposed this kind of transitional document between the two. That would have made you have to look at this. Hopefully, the way in my mind that I was gonna do it would help you. But this is, if we just forget about the numbering, this will show you how we reorganized it, and in that section, so for example. If the DPW department was moved into administration, it'll be there, but it'll be redlined out because we have voted to just delete it in its entirety. But it'll be there, and what that gives the advantage, if somebody in town meeting says, I want the DPW department in there, all we have to do is unredline it, and it's there. But we will still maintain this nice reorganization that we spent all this time trying to accomplish.
And that's why we said the first article will be to ask town meeting to reorder the existing charter with no changes,
Yeah,
just to
that's a good point.
reorder it.
So to Steve's point, as he made today, if they say no to all the other articles, at least
Yeah,
they've gotten a neater existing charter out of the deal.
so
Easier to
you
read.
four are gonna be working on that,
What's that?
so you four are gonna be working on that.
I think basically these two gentlemen.
That's the-
We'll work on that to get.
Like I
that
said,
out to
you can bring the donuts whenever you want.
So I think before our next meeting, you'll see that, you'll have a chance to look at some of that, and we'll get it out as quickly as we can to you.
One other thought, so
Go ahead.
at that same time, do we also want, if anyone wants to readdress, reconsider, if they obviously see any change in something that we missed?
Sure, we're winding down, but I think we should still have at least one meeting where we
Oh,
go
yeah.
through the whole charter, the proposed change charter. Make sure everybody's happy with it. Is there anything we should add, subtract? We'll take up as a last minute punch list item and make sure everybody's happy with it. So keep that in mind. So make some notes as you go through. If there's something you think we might have missed, something we might want to tweak. Let's spend the last meeting or 2 meetings making sure it's 100% the way everyone likes it. If that works for everyone, I think we're in good
Can you
shape.
envision?
I'm sorry?
Can you envision finishing all that after our next meeting, at the end of our next meeting? I would assume it would take longer than that.
No, I think at the end of our next meeting on the 18th, I think we'll feel comfortable with the paperwork you have in front of you. And I think we'll have 1 or 2 other meetings beyond that. And I think after that, I think we're gonna be starting to talk about selling the body of work that we have, right?
We should probably, we'll have one, I assume we'll have one meeting in which we will address the articles, because I think we as a committee.
Yeah.
Need to decide collectively that we are in agreement with the form of the articles to be presented to town meeting.
That's a good point. So there's a handful of meetings left, but I think the schedule is winding down a little bit.
2 to 3 at most, yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, is there any new or old business for this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone coming in, and we'll see you on the 18th.
Wave to